So in today's video I'm going to be reviewing, swatching and showing you how I did this eye look with the Carnival 3 collection Love Tahiti by BPerfect and Stacey Marie. So let's get into the tutorial. So I've applied my P.Louise base in Rumour 02 all over the lid. I'm now going in with the shade Blackberry, and I'm going to apply it to the outer corner of my eye, creating a C shape inwards. I'm just packing it on with a Real Techniques brush. Then with a more rounded brush, I'm going to take the shade Tahiti, and I'm going to use it to blend out the initial shade we put down. Now I'm going to take an even bigger brush and I'm going to pick up the shade Lilac and I'm going to use it to blend out the shade Tahiti. Then taking a clean blending brush, I'm going to buff out the edges. Then I'm going to take some Vaseline and a flat eyeshadow brush and use it to carve out my lid. I'm going to take a cotton round and some micellar water and use that to remove the Vaseline. Then I'm going to take a Aqua liner from Dumb Blonde Cosmetics in the shade Banoffee Pie, and I'm going to use it to outline my lid shape. I'll then clean it up with some micellar water. Taking the P.Louise paint in the shade Blank Canvas, I'm going to apply that across my lid using a flat packer brush. Then I'm going to take a small eyeshadow brush and grab the shade The Deep, and I'm going to pack it on the outer third of the lid. Taking a smaller brush, I'm going to grab the shade Lagoon and I'm going to pack it on the next third of the lid. Then I'm going to be taking the shade Reef and I'm going to be packing that on the inner third of the lid. Then I'm going to be taking that Aqua liner and I'm going to be splitting the lid into thirds. Taking the P.Louise base in the shade Rumour 02, I'm going to be priming my other eye. And then I'm going to be going into the shade Forest with a small brush and I'm going to be packing that onto the outer corner in a C shape. I'm then going to be grabbing the shade Tropics on a small fluffy brush and using that shade to blend out the dark green. I'm then going to be grabbing a Sigma E36 and grabbing the shade Keyline and I'm going to be using that to buff out the shade Tropics. Then I'll take a clean brush and buff out the edges. Then I'll use Vaseline and I'll carve out the lid shape and use my cellar water to remove the Vaseline. Same as the other eye, I'm going to use the Aqua liner to carve out my lid shape and then take the P.Louise black canvas to prime the lids. I'm going to be packing the shade Glaze on the outer third of the lid. Next I'll be taking the shade Mango and I'll be packing that on the middle portion of the lid. Then I'm going to be taking the shade Yellow on a pencil brush and I'm going to be applying that to the inner corner of the lid. And same as the other eye, I'm going to be splitting the lids into thirds using my Aqua liner. Now I'm priming the lower lash line on both eyes. And I'm taking the shades that we used in the crease and buffing them on the lower lash line of both eyes. Then I'm going to be applying the gloss from the collection in the shade Starkers. And the final step, I'm going to be applying the Get Wet highlighter in the shade Do You on the cheeks using a dry Rotechnic sponge. So that's the eye looks finished, and now let's get into the review. Okay, so let's get into the review. So obviously you guys just saw me using the Carnival 3 Love Tahiti Palette. It's the BPerfect collaboration with Stacey anyway. Just amazing looks, and she's actually come out with 2 collaborations prior to this one. They had the Carnival palette and then they came out with the Carnival 2, the Carnival XL Pro palette, and I have that one here on hand. And then obviously they came out with the Carnival 3 Love Tahiti collection. It came with 1 palette, 4 highlighters, and then I believe 5 glosses. So just for a size comparison, the BPerfect Carnival XL Pro is the tiniest bit longer, like the palette is a little bit longer than the Carnival 3. The reason being is because it has 40 eyeshadows and 3 highlighters, but the Carnival 3 palette only has 40 eyeshadows. So that's something to keep in mind. With the Carnival 2, it was basically a rainbow palette with some neutrals. So you had basically almost every colour you could ever want, and 3 highlighters for different skin tones. This would be an amazing palette for makeup artists. Carnival 3, so people, I guess people are wondering, oh, you know, what's she going to do with the Carnival 3 palette? She gave you more purples, because in the Carnival 2 you only had 1 purple and it was the colour Wasted right there. But in this palette you have loads of tones of purples, you have a few different pinks, you have some more oranges and yellows in different tones, which is really, really important. And then you obviously have some more grungy tones. Out of the mattes, I would say the only matte shadow that I didn't
get along with key lime. It is because it's such a light colour that you really need to make sure you have a super duper tacky base. You need to make sure that you're packing the colour on and not buffing it out too much. I used it today to blend it out, the shade Tropics, and it worked really well, but when I packed it on the lid for an Instagram look, I found that it wasn't the most pigmented and it didn't really grab onto the lid. If you are looking for this shade because you want it as a lid shade, it might not work the best, but it works really well as like a blending, diffusing shade in the crease. Other than that, I don't really have any complaints about this palette. I think it's an amazing palette. It's $36.95, you get 40 shadows. The price point, the formula, the colours, everything about this palette is absolutely top notch. It's amazing. When you look at these two palettes side by side, I personally do see some similarities, but the tones are different. There are quite a few similarities, and I do think that if you owned this one and you didn't really need purples, or you didn't have the money to buy this one, then you shouldn't get this one, because this gives you everything you need, but this just gives you more tone variation and more purples. Other than that, you can basically get most of the exact same looks with this palette. I do think that some of the colours are very similar. They're not the same, but they are very similar. All the shimmers in here work really gorgeously with a synthetic or a natural hairbrush. I've not had any problems with them. They pack onto the lid beautifully. These shadows have a really long staying power. I will say that some of these shades have stained me, like the greens stain a little bit, but you can get most of it off, but the purples stain a little bit more. These are the BPerfect Get Wet highlighters. It reminds me a lot of the Steel Putty highlighters that they had. I've got the shade G on my cheeks today and it's absolutely amazing. It gives you the most like intense highlight. I definitely recommend getting these. They do have a little bit of like a glitteriness to them, but not in a way where it emphasizes any of my texture. The best way I found to apply these is actually with a damp or a dry beauty blender. I would say out of everything I've tried, I think the glosses are my least favourite. To me, it doesn't have any scent. It kind of just smells like a lip gloss, like makeup. Yeah, it's a nice gloss. You can see on my lips, it does what a gloss does. It's not as high shine as I'd want it. Like I would say that my Fenty gloss bombs have like a really like high shine effect, whereas these, it's just like a typical drugstore gloss. And yeah, it's a nice formula. I went in with like 2 dips of this gloss to cover my whole lip, and it doesn't feel sticky, it doesn't feel heavy, it doesn't give you those stringy gloss lines. So yeah, it's really nice. The products I recommend most out of this collection are definitely the palette and the highlighter. So yeah, if you're thinking about picking one of these up and you're not super duper sure, I would definitely say go for it if you have the money. And if you don't have colours like this or a formula like this, or you really want like a blinding highlighter and a colourful palette, you'll not regret it. These are amazing. Stacey Marie and BPerfect, they did an amazing job with this collection. The formulation, the colours, the packaging, everything. So yeah, I highly recommend this collection, especially the highlighter and palette, obviously. And if you liked this video, then please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below of what you would like me to review next, or what videos you would like to see me put out, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!